How about Marcus, right in the middle?
That's where I always am, right in the middle.
There we are.
Anyway, hi, Angelo and Robert. Hi, Mark.
Hello.
Uh, um, well, so I have multiple kinds of neurodiversity, um, and a couple of them are visual and auditory aphantasia, so the not seeing visual images and not having an internal voice, and autism. And I find that I have to do a lot of translating of teachings that are maybe saying visualize this or um, have the intention that such and such, to try to find ways to translate into something that my brain can actually do. Um, but the uh, autism one has been really interesting lately because, um, like a lot of people on the spectrum, uh, I experience what are kind of trivial, I guess, bodily discomfort to a lot of neurotypical people as much, much, much more uncomfortable. And a collar that's touching my neck, my brain doesn't always really understand the difference between like that and pain. Um, and as I've gotten more into practice and have really focused on um, sitting with discomfort. Um, Up until very recently, like 3 weeks ago, that kind of discomfort, I ignored it in terms of practice. And in maybe in therapy more than in, through awakening teaching, I would, I if I was in therapy and it would all be about, oh, you're feeling fear or you're feeling anger, where is it in your body? So it would always be about what the story anyway was, that there was an emotion. So you have an emotion and you go into the body, but it I sort of taught myself the story that, yeah, but if it's not obviously an emotion, if it's an itch or, stomach pain from eating too much, that kind of doesn't count. That's not something I really need to sit with. And I think it was partly like embarrassment that it's sort of trivial, like a trivial thing, but also not wanting to go there, just really not wanting to go there because these these little discomforts are actually really huge for me, and I've spent my entire life disassociating from them as much as possible. I've got a million strategies to stop myself from experiencing them. And I'm probably employing one every minute of the day. So much so that it's just not even something I think about. But the main one is itches. Um, so itches for me again are, I can't really tell a big difference between an itch and pain. So all my life, every 2 seconds I'm scratching. I'm just making the itches go away. And for a while now, I've sort of felt like I really need to, like, first of all, that just, it's not about emotion doesn't really make sense to me. Like, that just seems like a story, like this, making this dichotomy between there's like the emotion we feel in the body, and then there's like the other stuff that's just physiological that's not making as much sense to me anymore. But, um, so anyway, about 3 weeks ago, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden there's just like I need to sit with this discomfort. It was just like a really strong intuition. And I don't think I had ever in my life before then just had an itch. I focused on itches just because they're reliable. They're going to come over. I don't think I'd ever in my life just sat with an itch. without scratching it. And I figured when I did it, I again told myself another story that, you know what, it will seem bad at first, but after about 30 seconds, it'll be gone. The reality was 10 minutes later, it wasn't gone. And what started as an itch would like blossom and bloom and take over my face and feel like little electrical charges were just kind of going all over the place. So I've been actually doing this for about 3 weeks now, and it feels like it's all these, I can't handle it. Thoughts come up. It's going to be too much. It's going to, I don't break me. It's going to be, um, but I am handling it. It's not breaking me. It's the most intense amount of experience I've ever felt in my life. Um, just letting my body have these these electrical charges. Um, After like a bout of that, after I sit with that, sometimes for 10 minutes, um, there's a kind of vulnerability, like almost that kind of thing, like after like a really intense workout, just like I feel a lot more raw. And I think there's some kind of sadness in it, in that vulnerability. Um, and it always feels like I have to have these like little internal itch battles to get to that sadness. So I guess more than like a real pointed question, I just what this isn't coming up as much before, but what came up at the beginning was, you know what, I am autistic, and would we really expect someone who had like a neurotypical person who had a huge burn, like just gotten like their finger burned, to just like sit with it rather than do something to treat the burn? So at least at the beginning, I was like, maybe this is just too much to ask of myself, and I should just, an itch for me is not the same as for a neurotypical person, and I should just scratch it. But that more and more, I'm getting the intuition that no, this is a really good, necessary thing for me to explore. So I guess I'm just sort of looking for feedback on that.
Sure. I can give you simple feedback. And as you were talking, I was being led to the answer that was what you already said you did. So I understand. So we none of us can really know what anyone else experiences. Like it's just impossible, right?
Right.
You probably experience an itch far more intensely than I do, probably, I would imagine, but I can't know that. However, I can relate to some things you say, and I've also talked to many people who relate to certain kinds of things that are so intense that I might not call intense. So one version of it is emotional pain. Like some people will say the emotional pain is like being on fire. And they describe it that way and they feel it that way. It's like I can't tolerate it. It's impossible. I have to distract myself. Other people physical pain, like they do have chronic pain states and so forth. And yours is a little more like it's like a neurodivergent kind of urge. So it's like almost like a tick, right? A little bit like
Mm.
someone trying to suppress a tick. All of these things though do have this quality of like I got to get away from it. I got to get away from it. It's too much. I can't handle it. It's building. It's building. It's building. It's like and you scratch. So I can relate to it myself in a couple different ways, but one specific one is interesting and it correlates very well with what you're talking about. When I meditated for years before awakening, or for a few years, but after awakening, I went and did Zen meditation at a Zen center where they would ring the bell and you're not supposed to move for 30 minutes at all. Like you're not supposed to move, right? You can't scratch anything. And I never ever thought little itches were a problem. I didn't even think about whether I scratched them or not, but I probably always did. Never crossed my mind. But man, it became torture to sit there for 30 minutes and not scratch an itch on my face. It did exactly what you're talking about. It was
Mm.
like spreading and getting so intense. And I was just like, oh my God. But I somehow like just stayed there. And I was like, I can do 30 minutes. And I mean, by the end of the bell, I'd be going, come on, bell, ring, 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 ring. And once I was done with the round, I'd be like, okay, now I can do whatever. And I'd scratch or whatever. But I remember enduring this for like it seemed like a couple months. Almost every round it would happen, and it was so weird to me. I was like, why am I itching so much? This never happens. Like it's just this massive resistance pattern. But at some point, it actually broke. It actually stopped happening. So I think you're in good territory, and the fact that you're getting to a place of that feeling of vulnerability, and it's kind of a surrender to your just being in a body, however that body's appearing for you, which may be rather different than most people. I don't know, it probably is, but it's yours, right? Comparing yourself to anyone else is kind of meaningless because who the hell even knows what other people are experiencing? And yet, I think your intuition is good because, to cut to the chase, what I find, even with physical pain, even with significant physical pain, the pain and the sensation or the itch or the tick or the urge or whatever you're experiencing is actually not the same thing as the part of ourself that's going, I can't handle it. I can't handle it. It's so intense. It's so intense. They seem like they're literally intertwined. And you'll never know they're not until you spend time doing what you're doing, which is super intense and very uncomfortable at first, especially. But it does teach you something. It teaches you something. And all I will say is do it in doses you can tolerate. Maybe it's 20 minutes, maybe it's 30, however long you can do it, but do it consistently for a while and just see what happens. You're already seeing something. And over time, I think what you'll see is it spills over into other areas of your life where you're like, oh shit, I would have reacted to that without even noticing it. And now suddenly I'm like, there's a gap. Like I don't actually have to. I can rest in this discomfort. Interesting. So that's all I want to say is I think your practice, you intuitively found your way into a very good practice. And anyone listening to this who finds anything too intense, try it with that. Just see what happens. When we talk about 4 and 5 Fetter, that's exactly what we're doing. We're leading ourselves into a very intense place. It's very uncomfortable at first, for sure. But this can work with so many things. I know people who have, tendency to pick their skin, and this is their lifelong challenge. A tendency to distract yourself in a certain way, even an addiction. All of these things have that kind of urge that grows and grows and grows and feels so overwhelming. But if we really do a little inquiry and a little bit of kind of non-reactivity work and sit with the discomfort, we will see the difference between a thought, interpretation, perception, and a pure physical experience. And the more those diverge, the more we realize what physical experience actually is, and it's not exactly what we thought it was. It's very profound actually in a way, and it leads you to this, like you said, this opening to an emotion body that you may have been closed off from to some degree. So I think you're doing great work, and I think your explanation of it was awesome, and it'll be helpful to people to hear that. That's all I have to say. Yeah.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And I loved what Angelo said, and it's very helpful for everyone else. I identified completely with everything that you said. I actually lost you, Marcus. I'm not
Oh,
seeing.
hi. Can you
Oh,
see me
oh,
now?
there you are. You just
Yeah, hi.
sorry. So yeah, I really identified with everything you said. My epilepsy accompanied me throughout my path, and I was constantly like balancing a nervous system that was constantly like falling apart, and cracking, and constantly trying to comfort it. And I was so sensitive to colors and lights and everything. And so every minute I was managing it, and I used that constant. I was sharpening my concentration so much by being so finely attuned to the energetics of the nervous system, that it really accelerated my process in awakening, I think more than say someone else. So it was actually a gift, even though it caused a lot of suffering. I began to view it as a gift, not only for just mindfulness and concentration, but also wisdom. So you described beautifully. I don't want to add another list into your life or come across as academic, but I've been on year-long retreats and many, many multi-month retreats, and I've gone through the insight stages both slowly and quickly, and I've unpacked them at a very deep layer. And you're describing insight stages that I have been through in depth and come out the other side of. And the sort of there's an insight into suffering, what we call, I don't know if you don't need to be Buddhist, but we call it the first noble truth. And there's a package of sort of insights that come with that realization. And one of them is Bayayana, which is an insight into fear. And these happen naturally. You don't need to study them. You don't need to go look them up. They're just happening naturally. They're part of the unfoldment process. And so it's an insight into fear. Baya means fear here. And what accompanied for a lot of people, and especially for me, was itching going on when I was going through the insight into fear. And I think in Burmese they use the word. I mean, my teacher was Burmese, but they use the word fire ant. I don't know if you've ever been bitten by a fire ant before, but when I was describing the itching going on, he was like, "Oh, that's nothing. It's it's likely to get worse before it gets better," and it did. It became a total burning sensation, like my flesh was burning. It was the most uncomfortable experience of suffering that I had ever, it was almost intolerable. And I, of course, was in a very strict, almost militaristic Burmese tradition at the time, and we were not allowed to move as well. Something like the Zen tradition. I I found that it really developed my equanimity practice. Like I could almost, I could just see almost have to have access to freedom at that point. Otherwise, it's just intolerable. You just have to sort of rest in sort of a formless awareness, and which includes the experience, and without any identification left whatsoever. Fully embracing it, the experience. And I found that was something that I was able to get through. And my teacher, what helped me get through it was actually the experience of the non-dual. And so he had me start noticing when it was really intense. He asked me to notice corners, whether I could notice corners. And I realized that I couldn't, that everything had gotten kind of round and circular and flat and energetic, and there was no difference between inside and outside, and my attention was very strange. So it's almost like I could see atoms moving when I was looking with my eyes open. And so he had me spend more time outdoors, sort of watching nature and experiencing sort of non-dual awareness, and it helped break the experience. And when I was able to go back to it, it did end. I have not had this experience of itching, of intense itching ever again. It came to a sort of conclusion, a sort of crescendo and decrescendo. It was a sort of musically energetic experience, the rise and a definite end to that experience as well. And so, yeah, I would just encourage you to sit with as much equanimity as possible, and to really notice your surroundings, and really, I don't know if you're familiar with the Bahia Sutta and sort of Angelo's non-dual practices that he, has people experience. And also this Vajrayana comes after some sort of dissolution of not self. Usually when it gets full, you can experience it at a lighter level at an earlier stage, but it will intensify and come to a crescendo after the experience of not self. And so, the healing is there. The healing will come. You're in a beautiful space, and you have a lot of support in this community, and you're articulating it all really well. And neurodivergent or not, I can definitely identify with what you're saying, and you're on the right track. So keep going.
Thanks, Robert.
Thanks so much, Marcus. Great seeing you, man.